The Atlanta skyline here. We're inside the College Football Hall of Fame as SEC Media Days 2025 is officially
Welcome back to the SEC Kickoff Football Media Days, Day 1, live in Atlanta, Georgia.
Do you have an opinion on that, or how are we going to rectify that? Well, we from the College Sports Commission think that we're operating consistent with the settlement terms. We'll have the right kind of communication with the authors of the letter and communicate and educate on why we think we have the right perspective to begin with. And Commissioner, over to our right-hand side, on the far out.
Hello, Greg. David Clark with the Charleston Post and Courier. When do you anticipate having the format of the 2026 football schedule finalized?
First of all, I spent a long weekend in Charleston a few weeks ago, and it was my first time to walk around downtown, visit Fort Sumter, play Bulls Bay, and experience Folly Beach. So I didn't buy a newspaper when I was there. That was my 4 days away, so I owe you. I've been careful about giving dates. I've said repeatedly, I learned during COVID that you want to use your time. It won't linger terribly much longer. We have to make decisions about the 26 season and adjust. If we're going to go to 9 games and there have to be games removed or rescheduled, and if we stay at 8, probably a little bit easier on that part of the logistics. Once we make a decision in the conference office, we're pretty ready to go. If you go back to when we made our last decision, we were in Destin. I think 2 weeks later, had opponents out, and shortly thereafter, we were prepared with dates and sites, sort of thing. Okay, we'll go back here in the center section.
Mike Griffith, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Dog Nation. Commissioner, you talked about the differences in the playoff models, and a lot of people have speculated on what's best for college football. When you talk about best, what would be some of the bullet points that you want to get out of the ideal college football playoff format? Should it expand to 16 teams?
Well, you're binding me to a 16-team playoff, but I'm going to, Mike, walk you back. So I'm on record of participating in a decision process that 12 was the right direction. And that took years, plenty of ups and downs. As I said, the middle is messy, and a marathon was messy. In that consideration, I think it worked well. Like some of the changes happening around us that may create some competitive balance raise the question of expanding. I've always been a fan of there are no allocations. Like take the top 8 back in 2019 when people were talking about expanding. Take the top 12. I was an advocate for that. In fact, went back through with colleagues this spring. I could take the top 14, top 16. We have agreed, and I think last week there was some misunderstanding communicated about a memorandum of understanding. So in that memorandum of understanding, the top 5 conference champions have a role. So that's, unless you're going to go tear up the MOU, which maybe some other people want to do because of their concerns about the decision-making authority, that very clearly in that memorandum of understanding is granted to the combination of the SEC and Big Ten. Ultimately, we have to use that authority with great wisdom and discretion. But unless people want to tear it up, we're going to have 5 plus 7, 5 plus 9, 5 plus 11. As I understand, doubling down, so that was one of the phrases last week. That's part of the gambling experience, as I understand. And you always want to have a really good set of cards. You want to have a good hand to play, right? And I think we have the best hand to play. So we're going to operate consistent with the MOU. There's an allocation of those 5 spots. And I guess we'll continue to debate whether expansion beyond 12 is appropriate for the college football playoff. And we have time for a few more. We'll start in front of the meeting, Commissioner. Tom.
On there, Greg, and I also appreciate the tribute. When the format for 2026 is set, do you anticipate, could it possibly be another 2-year fix, or would you like it to be longer term? And does either side have momentum?
I generally like to get out of the football scheduling decision questions, right? So that suggests a longer term would be better. One of our learning experiences from our expansion to 14, and we had years, and then 12 years. And our discussion now is perhaps look-ins every so often would be wise. So while you might want to answer it once and for all, I do think there's an expectation that we'll at least have look-in opportunities should the schedule change. Okay, we'll go here to our right, Kirk.
Kurt Bowles from the Houston Chronicle. Greg, given the long history of revenue sharing, now that we're like 2 weeks in, what's been the early reports from your members as far as any concerns, complaints, or consensus?
There's consensus about concerns and complaints. How's that? Yeah, it's anything new is going to create questions. It's not constant and overwhelming from all 16, but it's a continuing process. And I think the freak out factor is a little bit high, if you will. In other words, somebody writes something and people freak out. That doesn't mean it's accurate. All the cautions about, hey, you know, the Twitterverse isn't maybe the best resource all the time for information, or X versus it's known. There's a great deal of trust that we've built with our members, and so we can walk through questions where we don't have answers. We'll go seek those. Keep in mind that we're still in the process of implementing policies, and that's defined in the settlement with the plaintiffs and potentially the court oversight. So there's a process to be involved. I do think it's a reminder of the importance of continuing communication. And as I indicated in another answer, we'll keep adding points of communication as we go through this change. It's one of those, again, COVID lessons that you have to change your operating rhythm. So maybe rather than quarterly meetings or monthly meetings, rather than monthly meetings or bi-weekly meetings, to either give an option for questions or conversation or provide information. And we'll go right over here on the second row.
Continue here. Greg Sankey will continue here. We'll be back from Atlanta in just a bit. Don't go anywhere. Right after this break, you'll hear more of the media asking questions and his answers. There's a lot more coming your way after that. Shane Beamer joins our set in just a little bit. You don't want to miss it. We're back on SEC Network right after this.
We'll be right back on the other side. Don't you go anywhere.